title of my lightning presentation is The Pain of Canceling a Major Annual Speleological Expedition Because of COVID-19. So in 2013, Tommy Shiflett from Virginia and I went with the British to Sistema in Oaxaca, southern Mexico. And we decided while we were there that we loved that place and we wanted to start going back there more often because we hadn't been there in several years. So while sitting in the airport in Oaxaca on a napkin like Willie Nelson writes songs, we came up with this short list of goals that we would go for 10 years in a row for a month. 2014 through 2023, we would conduct full speleology, all of the ologies, biology, paleontology, geology, cartography, archaeology, even psychology, because we worked with NASA one time to see the effects of camping deep underground on the diurnal cycle. Paleoclimatology, we've just started into, and we're working with a professor in Nevada because he says there's no data from that part of Mexico on paleoclimate, gear development, anthropology, what are the local beliefs on the caves, and publish about it. We support Mexican cave scientists. We bring excellent cave photographers and extend the length from the 65 kilometers it was then, which is 40 miles, to 100 kilometers, which is 62 miles. And I'm happy to tell you, in 6 expeditions that we've had, it's now 89 kilometers long, which is 55 miles. So as you can see, we've added 15 miles of length in 6 month-long expeditions, and also extend the depth, and we haven't extended that much, a little bit, 15 meters. So our 6 expeditions have looked sort of like this. You might recognize some people. Mark Minton in the middle of that doorway, and Yvonne drums next to him, Jim Smith with a blue shirt on holding the Explorers Club flag. And there's people from England, Mexico, Canada, and we've had people from England, from Wales, from France, from Australia, and so forth. So it's a real international effort. And this is what a typical cookhouse setup looks like. And there's Andreas Clocker back there from Australia, a big-time cave diver. And through last year's expedition, this is what the planned view of the map looks like. And the different sections of the cave system are in different colors. So north is up, and the farthest north we've gone is way up here. Farthest south is way down here at a deep sump that the British dove in 2013, dove at 80 meters deep, and a couple of those guys are the same guys that rescued the Thai soccer team in Thailand in 2018. There's a profile view of it. There's that farthest north passage up here. Here's actually the highest entrances up here, and then there's the sump 9 down here. So various sections of the cave are the Rio Iglesia section, the Sótano de San Agustín, which is the first part explored by Texas cavers back in the 60s, and the Sótano de Agua de Carrizo part in purple, the Nitananta part, which is the highest part up here in orange, and so forth. And for scale, this is an image of the Empire State Building, which is about 1,400 feet high. To the top of the antenna. It's 1,250 to the top of the building. So Sistema Huautla is actually 4 of those on top of each other for scale, for building scale. Some of the highlights of the system are this immense room, which is half again the size of a dome stadium. I'm giving this presentation from Irving, Texas, next door to Dallas, and we got the Dallas Cowboy Stadium just a few miles from here, and it's half again bigger than that. Here's another view of it. Fine photograph taken by Matt Tomlinson from Knoxville, Tennessee. An immense room, and I think the most remarkable thing about this room is it's got 1,000 meters of rock above it. It's 3,300 feet to the surface directly above it. So it's mighty stable for being so big and being in an earthquake zone. Huautla is known for being very vertical. It takes a lot of rope. Takes vertically competent people to do these immensely deep caves. And the deepest pit of them all is named the Tag Shaft, after Tag cavers that found it back in the 80s. And we've been going back to that part of the cave here in the last couple of years. And it's been a key to some major connections. That's a 436-foot free fall drop you're looking at there. Fine photo taken by Chris Higgins of Tennessee. Last year, 2019, we had 5 underground camps happen at the same time, which is a record for us. We'd had 2 or 3 at the same time, but last year, 5 different caves, we had deep underground camps. So we're really on a roll. We start our expeditions by a send-off party in Austin, Texas. There's been a history of caver parties there and a caver community. And this is on the back deck of my daughter's house. She's been gracious enough to host our send-off parties. We have a band play, and while the band's taking a break, I go to the microphone and I run through the objectives of the expedition. And if there's any old timers there from the 60s, which we have managed to have almost every time we've had a send-off party, I'll recognize them, see if they want to come up and say something. And you can see our illustrious president of the NSS there, standing there waiting to say something to everybody, because our project is an official project of the NSS. So then after the party, we've got a routine now, because we've done 6 annual expeditions, that we will go over to the storage unit and pack up 2 vehicles and begin the 3-day drive to southern Mexico. And that's what a packed vehicle looks like. Something you hope you don't have to unload at the border. And that takes some smooth talking. And I'm pretty good at that. I, tell them, Senor, por favor. It's a lot of stuff. Come on, how about 1 box? Usually it takes about 2, and then they're bored with you. But what we didn't see coming this year, a mere 2 weeks before we were going to load these vehicles and start driving, was this. The dread coronavirus reared its ugly head. And we said, what are we going to do? We were going to have the send-off party on March 29th. We were going to begin the 3-day drive from Austin to Huautla on March 30th. The expedition would begin on April 4th. The first COVID-19 case in Texas was March 4th. Bad timing. It began to blossom. It began to catch fire. Our expedition leaders began to get concerned on March 10th. We began talking about it on March 11th, and 3 days later, on March 14th, we canceled. Now, what's the pain? Well, the pain is 27 people from 5 countries had paid for airline reservations. 6,000 feet of new PMI rope is here in my home, 6 feet from where I'm sitting right this minute. In fact, this room is piled to the ceiling with boxes, and it's got to stay that way for a year. Now, we have cave leads that call to us in our dreams, and we got to wait. We got to wait till next year to see. Now, while we were discussing it for a few days, we made some pros and cons lists. Reasons to not skip the 2020 PESH expedition. Everything was set to go. Vacations were secured. Gear was bought. 9 months of preparations. I'm retired from a career. This is pretty much what I do. 9 months of my time. Surely only well cavers would go. Maybe we'll be careful on airliners and driving. Maybe we can pull this off before it hits. And then there's those leads. Reasons to skip it. We would not want to take the disease to the people there. Even if we don't take it there, it will probably arrive there, and we might be taking it there. Or we might be blamed for taking it there, rather. It could hit Mexico during the expedition, and we can't get back home. Turns out that would have happened. We couldn't have been able to drive across Mexico and get it into the United States, or there was a chance of that. The medical facilities in Huautla aren't the best, and they're for the local people. We could be turned down. Deep underground is no place to come down with a bad sickness, and the caves aren't going anywhere. So what's going to happen when we can finally go back? Now, this being late July, tomorrow's August, we don't know if we can go in 2021. The experts that we're in touch with say, maybe not. It's certainly not dying down yet, certainly not in Texas, certainly not in Mexico. It's even in Huautla now, though we're not to blame because we didn't go. So what are we going to do when we go back? We have plans to connect this cave right here. This is a plan view. Cueva Elysium was found last year. In 3 weeks, it was explored 5 kilometers long, which is 3.5 miles, and 400 meters deep. And we dye trace it. And I'll say more about that in a minute. We want to go back to Nitahe. That's a Mazatec name, means deep cave. Nitahe was explored 40 years ago by us, almost 600 meters deep, and we did a dye trace, which comes into the system. We want to go back to Nitaka, which we explored 30 years ago, went 760 meters deep, and we've explored the cave system up under it now. So we think maybe there's a way to connect to it. So we want to go back to that. And then there's Nitanashi, which we went to last year. And we think that a connection to the system is imminent. We think we're within a couple of 100 feet at a depth of over 700 meters deep. And then there's Agua de Carlota, which was originally explored by Canadians in the early 70s, re-explored by Jim Smith and pushed some more. It's over 500 meters deep and probably connects beyond the sump down in this area, which means it would go 1,200 meters deep, one of the deepest caves in the world, before it would connect to the system. And you know a sad thing about connecting caves like these? Nitahe has been on the deep cave list of the world for 40 years. If we connected to the system, it goes away. It's part of Sistema Huautla then. So we're talking about having ceremonies when the caves get connected to the system because they're no longer a cave. They're just part of a bigger system. You might recognize this picture. This was the cover of the February 2020 NSS News, and that's Mexican geology graduate student Fernando Hernandez, who is at Western Kentucky University, finishing a master's on the geology of Sistema Huautla. He dye traced Cueva Elysium, and we got a positive dye trace that came in about 600 meters deep. So we're really thinking that the next time we go, whatever year that is, that we'll have a 100-kilometer long cave, which is one of our goals we set back in 2013. Thank you to Dave Bennell, Chris Higgins, Josh Heidemann. I took some pictures, Matt Tomlinson and Scott Trescott, and map credits go to Aaron Addison and Tommy Shiflett. Thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead. Any questions?
I was going to interject. Your timeline was almost identical to our timeline in regards to cancellation of convention, and your concerns were quite in line with our concerns because, you know, we did not want to be the ones to bring COVID to West Virginia. And at the time, Randolph County, West Virginia had one case. And if you put together all the surrounding counties, there were only 11 cases. But that was, you know, if you remember the history, West Virginia was like the last state in the union to really blow up and explode. And yes, the caves will be there, but the people, it takes a lot to gain the trust of the locals. And you can do 99 things right and one thing wrong, and they will remember that one thing you did wrong, and they will pass that to their kids and their kids and so on. So we didn't want the caves to go away. So that was among the reasons, you know, we chose to do what we had to do.
Yep. Exactly.
I just find it, you know, your timeline and your reasonings are, you know, right in line pretty much with us.
Well, then you know how hard a decision like that is to make.
Heartbreaking.
Oh,
absolutely heartbreaking.